Now, have you seen the reports? I know the Washington Times newspaper done a piece on this, and it's out there in other publications where the national debt is not $9 trillion, Ron. It's 50. The debts that we have incurred and that we owe, federal pensions and what have you, are actual $57 trillion. How does President Ron Paul? What do you do about that?
Well, you can't wave a wand and get rid of it, and they're exactly right. The obligation is astronomical, and it can't be paid, and that's where the tragedy is. And when I go on the campaign trail, it's not surprising that many young people are joining us because they know they're inheriting this debt. So when I offer them a chance to get out of it, get out of Social Security, assume responsibility for themselves, as well as assume responsibility for their own medical care and get out of the government-run medical system, you know, they're receiving this very well. But the big question is, and the question you're really asking is, yeah, but what about these huge debts? I mean, who's going to pay for them? Well, the truth is it can't be paid for. Somebody's standard of living is going to go down. Most likely everybody's standard of living is going down. But if we don't have a plan, the thing is going to crash down on us because we'll lose the value of our dollar and we won't be able to take care of those who are dependent. Though I don't believe in most of those programs, I also believe that I have the only program that will actually tide people over. And that is why I emphasize this huge billions, hundreds of billions of dollars we spend overseas maintaining an empire. We're in 130 countries. We maintain 700 bases. And I say we should come home and take care of our people, take care of our highways here. Don't blow up bridges in Iraq and then pay to rebuild them. We should be dealing with people at home and people who are dependent and get people back to work, have a free market once again, have sound money. And though we owe a lot, we can produce a lot if we got our freedoms back. And that's the only solution that I can see solving these problems.
Now, even if you removed the entire defense budget, let's just say we wiped it. I think it's $630 billion this year, some astronomical amount of money. Even if you remove the entire defense budget, that still doesn't wipe this $57 trillion out. So
well, you wouldn't need to do it that way. I mean, that's over like a 30-year period. So you need to get the budget under control and then work your way out of it. It's huge, but you don't. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to deal with the $9 trillion immediately. What you have to do is reverse the trend. Immediately stop spending more than you're taking in. Get the budget under control and start whittling away at it. And it will send out a powerful signal. Instead of this obligation growing exponentially, it could be decreased in a significant fashion.
Congressman Ron Paul running for president here on the Republican ticket on the line with me. You're in Texas today, right?
I am getting ready to go on a trip up to New Hampshire.
Well, fantastic. Let's get back to some policy questions here, and I appreciate your time, Ron. I really do.
Sure.
The bills that you have voted against, and I have linked on MikeChurch.com, and I don't know if Congressman Paul has this on his website, but you should. There's a website out there you can go to, and you can retrieve the voting records of all members of Congress that are currently in Congress, and it's votesmart.org. And I get these emails from people all the time, Ron. Go look at Ron Paul's voting record, you idiot. Go check Ron. And if you go look at your voting record, it is impressive. My question to you, as I view your voting record, would you veto the bills that came to your desk that you have voted no on?
Most likely, yes. I would do that. But there may be a lot of attempts to override, but I would have a strong coalition. You know, conservatives are not supposed to like spending, so maybe they'd support me on the spending bills. And, you know, there are some on the other side of the aisle that aren't as anxious to spend the money overseas, and they like to protect civil liberties and privacy and not all this surveillance that's going on. So I think, though it may be a job, I think you could build up a pretty good coalition. But hopefully what would happen is they would realize that they have to start moving in a different direction, that if somebody like myself can be elected, that means the country is moving in a different direction. People in Washington are pretty political. They like their jobs, so maybe they just might shift their gears and come in this direction and start voting differently. My idea is not to close down everything. Like I said, if you cut spending enough to cut the deficit a little bit, I would put some money into the programs here at home. So it's not like on top of my campaign, or well, I'm ready to close down Social Security and get rid of food stamps.
Right.
I'd like to get rid of some food stamps from foreign aid and government aid and corporate welfare. There's a lot of things you can do that you can get a popular support for.
Do you believe that the American public needs to be weaned off federal largesse?
I think you should attempt to, but I at least generationally speaking,
right.
I would let young people an opportunity to start taking care of themselves. If you're 85 years old and need government health care and medicine, and they've taken money over the years from these people, no, you're not going to be able to wean them off. But what's happening now is they are being weaned off because their cost of living increases aren't keeping up with the increase in cost of living. You know, inflation is 8, 10, 12% for some of these people. At the same time, they get 2% increase. So they are being weaned off, and that's why they're unhappy and they don't quite understand what's going on.
Could you return Medicare and Medicaid back to the states as a policy?
Yeah, I think so, but not overnight.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I think that eventually, because under the Constitution, you can't deny the right of a state to take care of their people, so that would be okay. And we did have medical welfare programs a long time before Medicare and Medicaid.
Right.
I mean, it was handled. Nobody has pictures of people dying in the streets without getting medical care. Back then, there was a more charitable program. You know, churches built our hospitals for
right.
the most part.
Right. Let's talk about immigration for a minute, and it's Congressman Ron Paul on the line with us here on Sirius Patriot 144. Does the 14th Amendment, in your estimation, as you have read, and I know you're a student, you're a historian, a student of the Constitution, does the 14th Amendment confer citizenship upon the children of illegal aliens born here in the United States?
My personal belief is I don't believe so.
Okay.
But I've introduced two methods to correct that because some people can make a pretty strong argument either way. So I have both introduced legislation as well as a constitutional amendment to make sure it's clarified.
Fantastic. Are you on Congressman Shedegg's list, or are you a sponsor of the Enumerated Powers Act?
I can't recall that I'm on it, but you know, it's funny, people that are on it aren't necessarily voting with me all the time.
Well, are you a fan of the Enumerated Powers Act?
Sure. You shouldn't be voting for anything that is not, precisely enumerated in the Constitution.
Do you think we need a fence in between Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Mexico?
That is very, very low on my priorities. I don't think that's a solution, and a stick of dynamite could handle that. And they just can go around the fence. I think you need to remove the incentives. Easy citizenship, free education, free medical care, allowing people to break the law and get away with it and be rewarded. The fence is not appealing to me.
If you had to classify yourself, and I'm not trying to put you in a box, pick one of the three Republicans that you most identify with: Abraham Lincoln, Calvin Coolidge, or Ronald Reagan.
Well, you know, Ronald Reagan liked Calvin Coolidge.
Well, I think when you went from Coolidge, the big break towards big government republicanism began with Herbert Hoover. He's the one that introduced.
You're right. You've been reading. And you're probably not a fan of Lincoln, if I would just have to guess.
I'm hoping you're going to pick either Reagan or Coolidge.
Yeah,
so.
I'm going to pick Coolidge, even though Reagan was the president that I knew the best and was a good friend of. But I think Coolidge, just because of the era that he was in, it wasn't quite as challenging. So I'll pick Coolidge.